We are back on It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati. Lindsay Patterson, Mike Santagata here. Mike, how are you on this Tuesday?
Doing pretty good. Can't think of anything that's really going on, but yeah, doing pretty good.
Tuesdays are my least favorite week, especially during the NFL season because they're off on Tuesdays. There's not a whole lot of news and it's boring until they get back to practice on Wednesday. So it's always a chill day.
Yeah, I don't really focus so much on this. So.
You're like, what else is going on?
Yeah, I know. I should care more about all this procedural stuff, but it's hard.
It's
It's
okay.
hard for me. I don't know everything about I just learned that you only have so many people you can take
Same.
that can return from the IR. And then I also learned nobody ever hits that limit. So there's this outrage and calm, outrage, calm. It's the most obvious thing happened that we didn't even have to cover, but they had to bring Robbins back
Yeah.
off of IR, which I guess is something that you have to do from when you designate him that way, which they didn't know
Mhm.
Rico was going to be this good when they did that. So they had to bring him back, freak out. They cut him the next day. And it just feels like, why freak out about all this? Do you really think that what they're watching with Rico, they're going to let him go? Like the thing with Jake Elliott, when Jake Elliott got let go for Randy Bullock, it was Randy Bullock actually outperformed him in the
Yeah.
preseason. And Marvin Lewis just went, crap, I didn't mean for this to be a real competition, but one of these guys clearly won. There was no point in this that you go, man,
No.
Rico's the second best punter in the league right now by most analytics. But maybe they'll make it a real why would they make it a real competition? That'd be like if Bullock got hurt and then Jake Elliott went perfect on his field goals and hit from 63 yards on one of them. They activate Bullock. People wouldn't be going are they going to give him that job back? I don't know. Let's just calm down as people.
Yeah, I didn't know what when I saw the social media going crazy because of that, I'm like, and I really was like, give it 24 hours. They're
Yeah.
probably going to release him. And I know the whole thing is, oh, they could have waited to do it. They had to bring him back up anyways. That's kind of nice of the Bengals. Brad Robbins could probably land somewhere else maybe or get another opportunity, and the Bengals know they have a punter. So good news for the Bengals. Yeah, they have 8 of those moves, but like you said, teams rarely use all 8 of those, and the Cincinnati Bengals, I feel like, have their punter in Ryan Rico. So that's a lesson to just keep calm, give it 24 hours, then maybe you can have a little bit of a reaction. But the Bengals made their move. There's some other things I want to talk about before we get into kind of the film review from the Panthers game. Just a few things to point out. Obviously, we'll learn more when the Bengals hit the practice field on Wednesday. Zach Taylor talked to the media on Monday. Some of the things he was asked: Miles Murphy, McKinley Jackson, will they return? Zach Taylor again. People freak out, but he said the 21-day window is opening for Miles Murphy, McKinley Jackson, which we were all aware of. At this point in the next 21 days, they can bring Miles Murphy, McKinley Jackson, or both of them up if they choose to do that. So everyone just keep an eye on practice this week. Kind of feels like Miles Murphy would be the next one they bring up,
Yeah.
but to be determined on what that looks like and if he is back at practice on Wednesday. Again, Zach, it doesn't do Zach Taylor any good to announce all that stuff on Monday. Let a couple days go by. We'll find out Wednesday at practice if Miles Murphy or McKinley or both are back. I wanted to also say Trey Hendrickson felt like a little bit of optimism. I know Jeremy Fowler, I feel like he's close to the Bengals front office because he always has the Bengals front office news or anything behind the scenes that other media members aren't putting out there. He said no nerve damage for Trey Hendrickson, according to his source. And then a couple of the Bengals reporters were in the locker room on Monday and they said Trey was no longer in a sling and he was in really good spirits. Trey is a tough guy. He's played with a damaged wrist before while he's been out there, and I won't be surprised if he's back at practice on Wednesday. But also, Trey missed 2 days last week due to an illness, and he still played on Sunday. So that's kind of what's happening right now with the roster and some of the guys that we're all going to keep an eye on. And BJ Hill is ahead of Sheldon Rankin, so that's another one we can see if he's back on the practice field this week.
Yeah, I mean, the long shot hope is just BJ Hill's ahead of Sheldon Rankins, but they somehow both get activated for this game. They're going to need bodies. They are going to need bodies. If somehow all 3 of the injured DTs just all come back this week, perfect. I think the one thing with Jackson, and I think Anarumo said this, He
Mhm.
really hasn't practiced. Like, he got injured, practiced a couple times, and got injured again. And I don't think he even got any preseason action. So it's tough for them to just throw him out there. I know you might just be thinking like, yeah, could it be worse? Which
It
honestly,
could.
I I don't know if I disagree with that statement, but um, yeah, I just, if they're able to get BJ Hill back, you start getting into BJ Hill and Chris Jenkins are going to be your two best guys. I think that would be solid, fine as a duo.
Okay.
Do they want to go with three and then you're in issues where Lawrence Guy would be my third,
Mhm.
but I think their third is Zach Carter, and then Jay Tufele is probably their. I think he would be the fifth in that scenario. I'm not sure though, but just based on snap counts, it just seems like Zach Carter is playing ahead of Lawrence Guy for sure, and playing ahead of Chris Jenkins at the moment. So it's a little bit of hope for me that Chris Jenkins would start in that scenario. Just that maybe they think he's working back from something. I don't know, but Chris Jenkins looked good in the Panthers game, so I'm optimistic about what he's going to be able to bring against the Ravens, another run-heavy team. I think the whole thing with the Ravens is just, can this defense keep them under 40? And
Yeah.
like usually it's a race to 30, right? But it feels like against this team, it might be a race to 40, because of how bad this defense has been with the things that the Ravens are good at, along with how good this Bengals offense has been. And the Ravens defense looking real good against Buffalo, but before that, they had some slip ups.
Yeah, we'll have plenty of time to kind of talk about that matchup with the Baltimore Ravens. I agree with you. I think you're going to have to hold them under 40 to win this game. Do I believe the Bengals offense can get to 40 100% back-to-back performances where there were still opportunities, that they can capitalize in the red zone? I'm sure Joe would like a couple throws back, including the one to Jamar, which again, it's not on Joe Burrow. I think that was just miscommunication. But overall, this offense has been a lot of fun, and I feel like there's still a couple more gears to see out of it. And not to get too much into Baltimore, but I'm obviously a little excited to talk about an AFC North matchup because there's plenty to talk about with facing Baltimore. But one of the things that's going to be different, and we'll focus on the offense right now and look a little back to the tape review from the Panthers game, is this Bengals team might have a run game. And it's something that they haven't had when they faced the Baltimore Ravens. And I think that threat could be a lot of fun, utilizing the tight ends. I saw a matchup today that said Eric All could have an advantage when you think of him in this offense versus the Baltimore Ravens defense and what that will look like. So I think with the Cincinnati Bengals, there's a lot of different options, and that's your tight end group, that's your wide receivers and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. We're still waiting for T. Higgins to get in that end zone, and maybe it is against the Baltimore Ravens, and all the focus is on Jamar Chase. What does that look like? How does the offensive line look? Amarius Mims, a test against this defense. So the matchups are going to be really fun to talk about. Obviously, I'm hoping for good news when it comes to injuries, and we'll know more when we're recording on Thursday because the Bengals will have practice on Wednesday. Maybe we'll know more, maybe we won't. Some of these guys could be limited, and I think all eyes are on Trey Hendrickson if he's going to be back out there, and obviously the excitement of getting Miles Murphy back out there. Before we get to the defense, let's flip to the offensive side of the ball. Joe Burrow, over the last few weeks, and I've said it before, pretty much since Kansas City, he's been on it. It's been fun, and it's such encouraging. And I know they're 1-3 at the moment, but when you look at some of these graphics of where the teams are, you see the Cincinnati Bengals as one of the good teams, bad defense, and there you see them in the corner with the Commanders, and it's just crazy to think about at 1-3. And yes, if some of those balls would have bounced the other way, they could probably have 3 wins right now, and it's really disappointing. Honestly, you could say they could have won every game, but unfortunately that didn't work out for them, and they're sitting at 1-3. Joe Burrow over the last few weeks, 30 plus. What did you see from him in that Panthers game?
Yeah, usually games in the NFL are close enough that you could look at it and be like, they could have won that game. Not, I guess, every game, because I saw 42-14 for Commanders Cardinals. I don't know where you're going to point to and be like, we almost had them. Yeah, I thought Joe Burrow was good, though. I thought he was accurate. The interception wasn't on him. I thought he did a good job in the pocket. I thought he did a good job being mobile, of avoiding pressure. He ended with 0 sacks, but it's not like he was never pressured. I thought the offensive line was great. Don't hear me wrong here. I thought the offensive line gave him a really good performance, but even a really good performance is going to leak out a little bit of pressure. And Clowney got Mims twice in this game. So Burrow had to avoid those situations, to avoid a sack, to avoid getting hit. Really, I mean, you could think of the Ravens game last year. It was Clowney that hit him that caused the injury, and it wasn't a sack. So, not that Clowney did anything wrong, just was thinking of that when I was talking. He's just in complete control and orchestrating the offense. He is the conductor. It feels like he has just absolute control right now, where he's doing shifts and motions to see what the defense responds with, and then getting into a better play or getting into a better protection when he sees how they respond to those things. It feels like he has settled in with the other part of the offense as well, where he's always been good in the spread, shotgun, empty, and just getting five guys out in the pattern part of the offense. But it feels like with the 12 personnel, maybe it's just with how multiple it can be and how many answers there are with it. It feels way more comfortable for him than it ever did with the under center wide zone stuff, or anytime they've tried to mix in some run game type of offense. This run game is finally one that it seems like, okay, yeah, Burrow seems pretty comfortable with this. So that's good to see. I thought he threw some darts. I mean, the throw to Yosivas is insane to fit that right there. And he's done that exact throw before, but anytime you see somebody throw that ball above the guy covering him and between the two safeties, just that's a perfect throw, and gave Yosivas enough time to protect himself a little bit. It doesn't seem like he really hung him out to dry too hard there. And also he's got eyes for Chase again, where we were which he had that last week too, but I think the first 2 weeks it was watching going like, he kind of missed Jamar here. That's weird. He missed Jamar here. That's weird. Now it doesn't seem like he misses Jamar there. Actually, it's back to the other version of, well, once in a while you thinking of the Gesicki play where Jamar gets the target and Gesicki's open in the two-man concept there. And it just felt like, well, let's not just only look at Jamar, but it seems like they're back on track. And you mentioned T. Higgins hasn't gotten to the end zone yet. Man, it's a matter of time.
It's happening soon.
He gets so many targets and he's so close. 2 defensive pass interferences that stopped him from getting in the end zone in this past game. And then the game before that, he is just a better throw away from scoring a touchdown. So if you're worried at all about him not scoring a touchdown yet, I just think be patient. It's just been bad luck at the moment. It's not like other guys are really getting those targets and he's not seeing him in the end zone. He's getting the targets. It's just they haven't converted just yet. And I don't even think it's a Higgins thing. I think it's just unlucky things where the DPIs and which set him up for a score anyway, or the missed throw from Burrow. That's not going to happen very often, but it did. So that stopped him as well. Otherwise, I just can't talk enough about how this offensive line's been great. The 12 personnel stuff's been great, and we'll have to get into it. But Chase Brown finally getting that big role. And so that's going to be a whole point of discussion, but he's been awesome this whole year. I mean, efficiency monster on the year, just thinking of some of the stats that I found when I was doing my article this week on him, but he leads the entire NFL in yards per carry for running backs. The only guy ahead of him in general is Lamar Jackson, funny enough. His rushing success rate is 65.5%. That's unheard of. His EPA per rushing temp is 0.025 plus 0.025. That's incredible. And that's all with only having a 20-yard run as his longest run. And that's his only run of 20-plus yards, is that one run of 20 yards. So a lot of times those stats get inflated, not the success rate, but the other ones, because somebody rips off an 80-yard run. And it's like, oh, now he leads the league in yards per carry because he just ripped something off like that. Chase Brown's doing it while just monstrous 8, 10, 9, 8, 10, 12, 6-yard performances like every single carry. And it just feels like he is so close to breaking one out. I think that's also, just like I mentioned with the Higgins touchdowns, I think it's a matter of time before Chase Brown gets through one of those attempts at his legs where they trip him up or whatever and is gone, because I don't think people are going to catch him if he finally does hit the open field.
Yeah, I want to stay with the running back room right now because it still feels like a 1-2 punch. And obviously it was Zach Moss early on, and now we're seeing, I feel like it's going to be like 60-40, and maybe it's going to be Chase first, and then you have Zach Moss out there. I want to say Zach Moss is still underrated in some areas when it comes to blocking. I mean, that's
Oh
really
yeah.
nice to have when he's out there. So I love this running back duo right now. I don't feel like you have to choose between one or the other. And obviously, Chase Brown, I want to see him get more touches every single game because he's so fun, explosive, and he's fast. But Zach Moss can still be a weapon out there too.
Yeah, Zach Moss. I thought he was advertised as a good pass protection back, and I think he's been awesome, like better than advertised. Even a great pass protection back. I had the one clip that went kind of crazy with just he picks up a defensive tackle because Karras gets stepped on and falls over. He picks up the defensive tackle, and Volson eventually takes it over. But to do that, stonewall the defensive tackle, and then still leak out and catch the ball as a check down and still run for 21 yards. That's crazy. I mean, that's why he's on the field. And then other clips you'll just see of other things. He's just awesome in pass protection. Every time in pass protection, he is right there. He's in the right spot. He's stonewalling his guy. It feels like that's a good piece for Burrow to have. It's like P. Ryan in pass protection, except he's got more juice. He's just got more juice as a runner and a receiver. So that check down to him, yeah, P. Ryan had some big ones, but it felt like those were more like the defense had a mistake than it
Yeah.
was P. Ryan made it happen. But when I'm watching Zach Moss, it's just he makes guys miss in the open field. He's got enough juice to beat some angles to run upfield. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he's not slow, I think is how I would describe him. So yeah, I do think, I don't know, maybe underrated in the fan base, but he's a pretty solid back.
Yeah, it's fun to see, and it's just nice for the Cincinnati Bengals in the red zone right now to say, "Oh, they're not going to throw it; they're actually going to run this time," or they change it up, and that's going to be great when you face different defenses because it's pretty expected when you see the Bengals in the red zone. You're like, "Oh, they have Jamar Chase out there, they have T. Higgins, Yoshi's out there now. Maybe they'll go to the tight end," but no. You have running back options, and that's exciting for this offense in an area that they definitely want to continue to capitalize on and get better. But when you see what this offense has been able to do, just 3 weeks overall, is this the, and I don't want to speak too far because they are 1-3 on the season and the record does matter. Is this the best supporting cast Joe Burrow has ever played with right now, early on?
I still think in like maybe overall, yeah, I guess I'd say so far. 2021 was weird though, because yes, the offensive line was stinky, especially on
Mhm.
that Super Bowl run. I think when they were fully healthy and Uzama was at his best and Mixon was still, I think, a really good back at that time, and Tyler Boyd was still a high-end receiver at that time, especially for being a tertiary option. I think that would be the only thing that would rival it. But I also think that T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are better now than they were then, and I think the offensive line is worlds better now. So I guess I could say yes, this is the best supporting cast he's ever had. It's definitely the most different because it was easy to compare 2023 to 2022 to 2021 because they're always 11 personnel, so you got the same
Yeah.
guys to compare. It's always it felt like the same weaknesses on the team were like, well, the offensive line is the weak link, but is it better than it was? Now it's like the offensive line isn't the weak link of a team to me. I mean, I don't really know if there is much of a weak link on this offense, which I think would point to it being the best supporting cast that he's had. So I'll say yeah.
Somebody we don't talk about enough, and just to see the difference between 2023 to 2024 is Orlando Brown Jr.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's been worlds better this year than he was last year. Last year, it did feel like that groin injury affected him a lot. Like after that week, he got much worse than he was the previous 3 weeks. But even in those 3 weeks beforehand, I would say the stretch he's on with these past 4 games is better than anything he put together on those 3 weeks. And, he changed his stance a little bit. It just seems like he's handling everything a little bit better. It does feel like Volson also playing a little bit better himself. I think this is his career best year so far, and that's going to help the guy next to you. So now he's a second year with Volson. Volson's improved as a young player. And yeah, I would say Orlando Brown, you check in every once in a while, you just go like, yep, still looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, offensively, I feel like we've talked about it enough. He's one of my rookie favorites. Is Eric All? Is there anything from watching that tape that you noticed that we haven't talked about already?
He was tight end one by snaps. I remember right after the post game show, we were talking, and you were like, "He's going to be tight end one," and I was like, "He might have been."
It's already
When I was
happened.
watching that game, I kind of had the feeling like he he might have been. Like, he had the most targets. He was always on the field running, run blocking, and then look it up and like, yep, there he was, tight end 1 as a rookie. That's insane because
It
tight
is.
end usually takes a while to hit unless you're, Brock Bowers hit the ground running, but that's Brock Bowers. He got taken
Yeah.
pretty early. The Bengals didn't really have a shot at taking him. But yeah, Eric All, he has been. I regret not watching his film because I got to the third. I kind of stopped sometimes after like 5, 6 guys, and he was the next one up, and I was like, I'm interested, but he's on the PUP list, and I'll just watch it later. And he recovers faster than I expected. And then now I'm watching him every week. And I'm like, I regret it. Like, I love watching this guy. So I should have watched him in college too. Iowa keeps producing these tight ends. He's been great. He's been awesome. I think like there's little things he can improve at, but
Yeah.
to be a solid tight end, both as a pass catcher and as a blocker, as a rookie, is pretty special. So I think the Bengals have their guy for the future in Eric All. I think that goes without saying, really. But yeah, nothing but a glowing review for him. Every week, it seems like he's just doing awesome work out there.
And when you're a reliable target, Joe Burrow is going to come to you plenty of times, and he is. He's just reliable. Obviously, want him to get a little more yards after catch, and we'll see what that looks like as rookie year continues. But I've said it before. Lewis Reddick, he said it right when the Bengals drafted him. That is a solid pick. If this guy can stay healthy, it's a home run pick for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm not trying to compare the two right now, but he did say he could be like a George Kittle type of tight end. Obviously, it is very early on in his career, and I'm not trying to put those expectations on Eric All right now. But it's a positive development to see him out there when it comes to some of the rookies. Anything else on the offensive side before we flip to the defense?
Yeah. I don't really have much else. I was just gonna reiterate with the Chase Brown thing and just talk a little bit more about it. Was they increased the types of runs he's getting, where it felt like he always got designer stuff where he's just going to follow a tight end or he's going to get into the open field or like your defined read is right here. It felt like that's almost all he got in weeks 1 through 3, and there was like 1 rep of duo in a game and there's 1 rep of zone in a game. But you can't build well, you can, but I don't think any NFL teams build an offense out of those designer runs. The only thing I could think of is like back in the 80s, maybe ISO, people would build the ship out of that because it's hard to build play action when you have pulling guards. And for the Bengals, when they run trap, they pull 2 different people. And when they run crunch, they pull 2 different people. So you're not going to build a pass protection that looks like that. So, their pass protection, for play action stuff is still built out of zone and duo. And Chase Brown finally got those runs, and he had multiple zone runs. He had at least 1 duo run. I think it was just 1 duo run, and he's still getting designer stuff, but getting those and making good on those makes it more likely that he's going to keep seeing the field, because those are harder runs on the running back mentally, where a lot of the stuff he was reading before was just read the leverage of this 1 block and cut off of it. You know where you're going. Just keep following this and then make your 1 cut off of this guy. When you're running the zones and duos, especially like zone, you're reading, okay, you read your C gap to your B gap to your A gap to your backside A gap to your backside B. Like, you have to quickly go down the line of like, where's my hole? And duo is also a very running back type of run because it's all you. It's you and the linebacker. You have to make that linebacker wrong, and he did on the score, which was a little easier because the linebacker walked himself down into it. But I think it's just awesome to see Chase Brown get those types of runs and make good on them, because it should let him see more of the field where they don't feel like he needs to only go out there for special plays. He can run anything that they want to throw out there when they're going to be running the ball.
Yeah, huge test coming up with the Baltimore Ravens coming to town. We'll have all of that later when it comes to the offensive matchup. Let's flip to the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, we talked about it. This team could get good news with Myles Murphy. I don't know about McKinley Jackson, if he'll be thrown out there already, but hopefully Trey Hendrickson is back to practice, BJ Hill, and then Sheldon Rankins. But when you went back and you watched the tape overall, let's start with the bad. Cam Taylor-Britt. Was it just a 1 game thing, you think, for him? Because Lou Anarumo was really honest about it. He was like, look, his eyes were a little bit everywhere. We had to take him off the field. And that was a good move by Lou. I think that was a smart thing to do. Sometimes cornerbacks don't have a good game, and obviously Deontay Johnson, he is a good wide receiver, and we do need to remember that. But you never want a quarterback to pick on your number one cornerback. What
No.
could be, I mean, if he is going to be the number one cornerback on this team, we could have that discussion later when it comes to DJ and Dax Hill. But how did it look when you watched the tape?
I mean, it looked terrible. So I think it'll be. I feel pretty safe saying that has been the worst game of Cam Taylor-Britt's career,
Yeah.
and it's a pretty safe bet that that will be the worst game of his career, especially considering that he was not facing, it's not like he was out there facing Justin Jefferson. He was facing Deontay Johnson, which is fine. Like Deontay Johnson's a solid player, but I just think there's a lot of teams have better number one type of wide receivers than Deontay Johnson. He struggled with everything, man. Like every coverage, every player. It wasn't just Johnson. Like he struggled with Leggett. Whatever happened just can't happen again. I do feel confident it'll be better than that. But anytime you have a game like that, just makes you think like, maybe this guy just is less consistent than you, because how are you going to say that, he's going to be the best corner on the team and you have a game like that? Like, I can't think of any games that Dax Hill has had like that. I can't, and DJ Turner gets crapped on. I can't think of him having a game that bad. I mean, you could talk about the Vikings game, but at least he was close to the receiver in that game. Like the Jordan Addison touchdown, he was like an inch of a finger away from knocking that ball down. Taylor Britt wasn't close to the receiver on those plays. And the touchdown, nothing. He was laying on the ground on the touchdown, and it wasn't to dive to make the play on the ball. It was because he got smoked. I feel pretty good that he'll be okay the rest of the year, just because I'm going to go off my previous evaluation and last season with this, but not something that inspired much confidence. It was as bad as you think it was.
All right, let's talk about DJ Turner when he was out there.
I think he was pretty good. He was always tight. I think that's one part of it. He was always tight to the receiver, whether it's the pick play or plays he's making, a pass breakup on. I don't think he was amazing. I think the same limitations have showed up last year, where he's just not a long corner. His arm length is an issue. When the ball's placed perfectly, it gets around him. But I do think he looks like a really good athlete out there. He looks like a really sticky man coverage type of guy. And, he made a couple of plays that were important. I never felt like he was getting smoked or beat really that bad. He might just lose leverage here and there. But overall, I thought he played really well. And I think the Bengals can feel very lucky that they have a guy like DJ Turner to pull off the bench when Cam Taylor-Britt is having a game that bad.
Yeah, that's an optimism. We'll go to Dax Hill before we get to the safety room. Anything on Dax? Because obviously, when you don't hear Dax's name, it's always a positive out there, and it can't be anything like Cam Taylor-Britt's performance.
He had two real targets that I remember. One in the end zone to Deontay Johnson that he punched through the hands and broke up. So PBU there. And the other one was to that rookie down the right sideline on a go ball, not even close. So I thought he played pretty well. He doesn't get tested as much. And against the Chiefs, I was like a couple moments where I thought maybe he could have gotten beat. But the past, I would say definitely this week, nothing to really think like some missed opportunities here and there where Dalton could have picked on him, partially probably because Dalton was picking the right guy to pick on in that game. But I didn't feel like he was having any issues. I felt like he was the best coverage probably player in that game in general. So, not that there were a lot of guys to pass up there's a kind of a low bar as him or DJ Turner for the most part. But I did think that he played pretty well. We'll see if he ever gets tested a lot in a game. I don't know if that could happen this week. Probably not with the Ravens. I think they're going to, try to run the ball. If I was them, I would try to do that.
I would run the ball every single down.
Yeah, but looks pretty good so far in the safety turn corner, other than his tackling.
All right, I have a question because Lou Anarumo, he talked to the media, and this is what he said about Jordan Battle, because they asked about Jordan Battle, what's going on? Why isn't he out there? And he said he came into training camp and it was a little bit slow for him. Maybe that's something that Lou Anarumo is saying, but when you look at the safety play right now, and Mike, I'm going to make you the defensive coordinator. Would you take Geno Stone or Von Bell off the field right now? You have to choose between one or the other. and put Jordan Battle.
I would take Von Bell off the field, I think, for Jordan Battle. Although in this game, maybe you take Stone off the field because
Double
Bell is
agent.
a better tackler. Um, but yeah, I think I would take Bell off the field and play Battle. They're not providing something to me,
Mhm.
and I'm not in the meeting rooms. I don't know the communication issues that maybe they had, but those two are not providing something to me that should be keeping Jordan Battle off the field. And maybe he really didn't do much this offseason and he came in slow or whatever, like Hanarumo's saying, and they make him earn those jobs. You
Yeah.
can look at Burton as another example of that. But to me, I don't see it like at least with Burton, you'd look at Yosivas and be like, Yosivas playing really well.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think either one of these safeties is playing really well to keep Jordan Battle off the field. And then he's not even the third guy. So I don't know. And to me, yeah, Bell would probably come off the field for Battle, and then if Stone misses a tackle or two in this game, I might pull Stone off the field for Bell and just try to run that way.
Yeah.
It's not like Stone's a super athlete, even if he has mostly played, deep safety, free safety, whatever you want to call it in his career. It's mostly just been like his intelligence and being in the right spot. But the run support's an issue, and the coverage hasn't been the same level as it was in Baltimore either. So yeah, it's not the early returns are pretty underwhelming on Stone. Plenty of time to course correct, but yeah, like if I was defensive coordinator, it would be Jordan Battle's time because neither one of these guys would have played him off the field to me.
And maybe they make that move this week. We'll see what it looks like when they get out there. But I mean, it can't get worse in the safety room right now, and you need that added help, especially when you are facing the Baltimore Ravens. Other places that are standing out for you right now, we could focus on Joseph Asai because the week before it felt like he wasn't there. Nobody was getting pressure. Obviously, Sam Hubbard has been the talk of the town because of the playing with the hamstring injury and obviously the injuries that they're dealing with on the defensive line right now. But when you think about those two players, Zach Carter out there, is it just they just need some bodies right now?
Yeah, I thought Joseph Osai was much better in this game, and I also thought Sam Hubbard was better in this game. So I thought Osai had some good pass rushes, and he didn't really make mistakes in the run game. He even had a run stop with Hubbard. Hubbard was a good run defender. He didn't do much as a pass rusher, but that's not what he's on the field for. I thought he was a better run defender in this game than he was the past week too. Looked a little better. I'm not as worried about the edge room. Well, I am if Trey Hendrickson misses the game, but I was more worried about that edge room last week watching the Washington game than I was watching the Carolina game. Or maybe Joseph Asai just had a bad day like Cam Taylor-Britt did, and there was some mental mistakes that he got picked on in that Washington game. Reed plays where he's the read defender, some bad run fits, and just shorted up and came out and played well the next week. So I don't know. I think Miles Murphy would be the second best defensive end edge, whatever, on this team. So hopefully he can hit the ground running with his injury. But yeah, I'm not as worried about that. Now, if we're going to move to the defensive tackle room, I have concerns, but
We can move to the defensive tackle room right now. When you think about the Cincinnati Bengals, who's obviously doesn't help when you see former Cincinnati Bengals players performing. But when you think about the defensive tackle going forward and just even going into this Baltimore Ravens game and the tape that you saw versus the Carolina Panthers, is it it's not fixable?
I mean, it's fixable if Jenkins plays more and you get BJ. Like the real thing is just get BJ Hill and Sheldon Rankins back because Zach Carter and J2 Fedley playing this many snaps is just it's not
No.
how you can build a winning defense. It's tough. Though every once in a while they both can make a play in the run game, but neither one's providing anything as a pass rusher. And for the most part, they're getting taken wherever the offense wants to take them in the run game. It's not like they're consistently getting to where they need to be run defense wise, like gap wise. They're getting blown off the ball at times. Neither one's really handling double teams that well. It's tough. There's a couple of reps that make you go like, okay, if you could do that consistently, you'd have a purpose on the field, but at the moment, but just to me, Lawrence Guy would be the perfect example of a replacement level player. Just like that's a guy you found off the street and signed, and
Yeah.
they're both playing below that. So what does it say? Like that's telling you that these guys, they're worse than the guys out on the streets for this team. I think Lawrence Guy has been fine. I think Chris Jenkins was good, and it was insane that he didn't play until the goal line stand. But I don't know. I'm not making that decision. Maybe it's health related. I think he did have a club in that game, so it's not like he's got his hand usage fully there, so maybe they're worried about something there or aggravating the injury. But I would hope you see more Chris Jenkins in this game against the Ravens than you did against the Panthers.
Yeah, Lou and Zach Taylor had really encouraging things to say about Chris Jenkins. And look, this team isn't afraid to play rookies. I know we can talk about Jordan Battle in year two. Putting him on the field is a question mark for the defensive side of the ball, and we definitely want to see more of him. But if you can perform, they'll put you out there. And, if you can continue to see that from Chris Jenkins, that's a win for this defense. And hopefully the club, I don't know if there's any advantage to that, but he should have it off in the next few weeks. So that'll be a bonus for him. But yeah, I want to see more from him on the defensive side of the ball, and I think that can be encouraging from this rookie class as a whole. Anything from the linebackers? Because I feel like after that, we've just hit on everything on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I thought Logan Wilson had a much better game in this one than the past week, and Logan Wilson's been pretty good this year. I think overall, I think he's definitely been the best linebacker. I wish there was more King Davis Gaither in that game. I was a little surprised that they stopped playing him when they played him the past 2 weeks, but it is what it is. I don't know why, but that is where they went with that. Maybe it's just what Lou Enron was more comfortable with, playing 3 defensive tackles rather than 3 linebackers in the scenario of trying to match heavy personnel. But overall, thought Logan Wilson played a pretty good game. I thought Pratt was all right. Pratt just looking a little slow this year for some reason. And it's not like he's always been the fastest guy, but it just seems like he's a half step slower this year than he was the past couple of years. And that's something they'll have to overcome.
Yeah, well, definitely something to monitor right now. And I'm a huge Akeem Davis Gaither fan. I love that 1-year deal. Wish it was kind of maybe a 2-year deal. Maybe they'll look into that. But obviously a great addition on their defensive side of the ball, and just from that 2020 draft class. Anything you want to say after watching the tape overall? I mean, we've already talked special teams, Rico, Dejon Anthony with a huge play on special teams. But other than that, the Cincinnati Bengals have a huge test coming up. You could drop the 1-4. You could be right back in the thick of things at 2-3 before they head off to New York. So huge matchup for them in the AFC North. Big week of practice. The next time we record, we will have updates on who practiced on Wednesday and Thursday. Hopefully good news on Trey Hendrickson. Sheldon Rankins, maybe he'll be on the rehab field. BJ Hill, as we mentioned before, he was out there during the pregame, kind of like a T. Higgins, similar to the Kansas City Chiefs game before the game, out there stretching, getting reps with the team, which is always encouraging. And hopefully he's back for this huge matchup and first game versus the AFC North of the 2024 season. Make sure you check out Mike's work, a fantastic piece on Chase Brown over on All Bengals. Obviously, all of his breakdowns, Bengals_Sands over on Twitter. You can follow me at Alan DS Patterson. Thank you for listening to It's Always Game Day in Cincinnati.